Learn to depend on yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, friends and fellow travelers on this journey called life, I want to talk to you today about a principle that is fundamental to every soul, to every human being, regardless of age, background, or circumstance. It is a principle that speaks to the core of who we are as individuals, a principle that, when fully understood and embraced, can change the entire trajectory of our lives. That principle is self-reliance, the ability to depend on yourself. Now, when we talk about depending on yourself, I am not suggesting that we abandon relationships, communities, or the people around us who provide support. I am not telling you to walk through life isolated and disconnected from the world. No human beings are created for connection. We are designed to live in community, to help one another, to share in each other's burdens. And this is a crucial. But before you can truly engage in meaningful relationships, before you can be a person of value in the lives of others, you must first be a person of value in your own life. Let me say it another way. Before you can give to others, you must first know how to give to yourself. Before you can depend on others, you must first learn to depend on yourself. The foundation of every successful life, every meaningful endeavor, every deep and lasting relationship is self-reliance. Think about this for a moment. If you're constantly looking outside of yourself for validation, for approval, for strength, for direction, for purpose, you are building your life on a shaky foundation. You are building your house on sand, and when the storms of life come, and they will come, you will find that your house cannot stand. Why? Because it was never grounded in something solid. It was never rooted in something unshakable. It was built on the opinions of others, on the ever-changing winds of external circumstances, on the fleeting approval of the world around you. And let me tell you something about the world. It is fickle. It will praise you one day and tear you down the next. It will lift you up when you conform to its expectations and abandon you when you no longer serve its purposes. So if you are living a life dependent on the world, on people, on circumstances, on external validation, you are living a fragile life. You are living a life at the mercy of forces you cannot control. And that, my friends, is a dangerous way to live. But there is another way. There is a better way. And that way is learning to depend on yourself. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking. You may be asking, how do I depend on myself? What does that even mean? Isn't life meant to be shared with others? Aren't we supposed to lean on each other for support? Yes, life is meant to be shared. Yes, we are designed to help one another. But before you can truly help someone else, you must first know how to help yourself. Before you can lean on someone else, you must first be strong enough to stand on your own. Before you can be a rock for others, you must first be a rock for yourself. Depending on yourself means knowing who you are. It means understanding your strengths and weaknesses. It means cultivating a deep and abiding trust in your own abilities. It means taking full responsibility for your life, your choices, your actions, your outcomes. You see, too often we live in a culture that encourages dependency. We are taught to rely on the government, on institutions, on employers, on friends, on family. And while there is nothing inherently wrong with seeking help when you need it, the danger comes when you begin to rely so heavily on others that you forget how to rely on yourself. Let me tell you something. No one is coming to save you. No one is coming to rescue you from your problems. No one is going to live your life for you. You are responsible for your own life. You are responsible for your own success. You are responsible for your own happiness. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you take ownership of your life, the sooner you will begin to unlock the true potential that resides within you. Now, let's talk about the mindset that is required to develop this sense of self-reliance, because it is not something that comes naturally to everyone. It is not something that we are born with. Self-reliance it is a mindset. It is a way of thinking that must be cultivated over time. The first step in developing self-reliance is to recognize that you are enough. Let me say that again. You are enough. You have within you everything you need to succeed, to thrive, to overcome, to achieve. You do not need to look outside of yourself for the answers, because the answers are already within you. Now, I know this can be a difficult concept to grasp, especially in a world that is constantly telling us that we are not enough. We are bombarded with messages that tell us we need more money, more success, more approval, more recognition. We are told that we are lacking, that we are deficient, that we are incomplete. But that is a lie. That is a deception. You are already whole. You are already complete. You were created with everything you need to fulfill your purpose in life. But in order to tap into that, you must first believe it. You must first recognize that you are enough. Once you begin to internalize this truth, you will start to see the world differently. You will start to see yourself differently. You will no longer feel the need to constantly seek approval from others, because you will know that you already have everything you need. You will no longer feel the need to compare yourself to others, because you will understand that your journey is unique. You will no longer feel the need to depend on others for your sense of self-worth, because you will know that your worth comes from within. The second step in developing self-reliance is to take ownership of your life. This means accepting full responsibility for your actions, your choices, and your outcomes. It means recognizing that no one else is responsible for your success or your failure. You are in control of your life, and the sooner you take ownership of that, the sooner you will begin to see real change. Too often, we fall into the trap of blaming others for our circumstances. We blame our parents, our upbringing, our environment, our boss, our spouses, our government. And while it is true that external factors can influence our lives, they do not control our lives. You have the power to choose how you respond to any situation. You have the power to shape your own destiny. Taking ownership of your life means no longer making excuses. It means no longer wait for someone else to solve your problems. It means no longer looking to others to give you what you need. You have within you the power to create the life you want. But it starts with taking ownership. It starts with recognizing that your life is your responsibility. The third step in developing self-reliance is to cultivate resilience. Life is full of challenges, obstacles, and setbacks. No one is immune to hardship. But the difference between those who succeed and those who fail is not the absence of difficulty, it is the presence of resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity. It is the ability to keep going when everything around you seems to be falling apart. It is the ability to stay focused on your goals even when the path ahead is uncertain. And here's the thing about resilience: it is not something you are born with. It is something you develop through experience. It is something you build over time through the trials and tribulations of life. So how do you cultivate resilience? You cultivate it by embracing challenges, by facing your fears, by stepping outside of your comfort zone. You cultivate it by refusing to give up, by refusing to be defeated, by refusing to let setbacks define you. Every time you face a challenge and overcome it, you are building resilience. Every time you fail and get back up, you are building resilience. Every time you push through adversity, you are building resilience. And the more resilient you become, the more self-reliant you will be. Because here's the truth: no one is going to fight your battles for you. No one is going to endure your hardships for you. You must be strong enough to face the storms of life on your own. You must be resilient enough to keep going even when it seems like the whole world is against you. And let me tell you something: there will be times when it feels like the whole world is against you. There will be times when you feel alone, when you feel like no one understands what you're going through, when you feel like giving up. But in those moments, remember this: you are stronger than you think. You are more capable than you realize. You have within you the power to overcome any obstacle, to rise above any challenge, to succeed in the face of any adversity. But that power can only be unlocked when you learn to depend on yourself. When you stop looking to others for answers and start looking within. When you stop waiting for someone else to solve your problems and start taking ownership of your life. When you stop relying on external circumstances for your happiness and start cultivating a sense of inner peace and resilience. The fourth step in developing self-reliance is to embrace personal growth. Self-reliance is not a destination, it is a journey. It is a continual process of learning, growing, and evolving. It is about becoming the best version of yourself, not for the sake of others, but for the sake of yourself. Too often we fall into the trap of complacency. We become comfortable with where we are, with who we are, with what we have achieved. And while there is nothing wrong with contentment, there's a danger in becoming stagnant. Personal growth is the key to self-reliance because it ensures that you are always moving forward, always striving to become better, always seeking to unlock more of your potential. Personal growth is about challenging yourself to step outside your comfort zone, to take risks, to pursue new opportunities, to learn new skills. You cannot become self-reliant if you are not willing to grow. You cannot become self-reliant if you are not willing to change. You cannot become self-reliant if you are not willing to evolve into the person you were created to be. And let me tell you something about growth. It is not always easy. Growth is uncomfortable. Growth requires sacrifice. Growth requires letting go of old habits, old beliefs, old ways of thinking. Growth requires facing your fears, confronting your insecurities, and challenging limitations. But growth is necessary. Growth is essential. Growth is the only way you can unlock the full potential that resides within you. And when you commit to a life of growth, when you commit to continually evolving into the best version of yourself, you will find that self-reliance comes naturally. Because self-reliance is not about perfection. It is not about having all the answers. It is not about never making mistakes. Self-reliance is about trusting yourself to handle whatever life throws your way. It's about having the confidence to know that no matter what happens, you will be okay. You will find a way. You will make it through. The fifth step in developing self-reliance is to cultivate self-discipline. Self-discipline is the ability to control your actions, your thoughts, and your emotions. It is the ability to stay focused on your goals even when distractions arise. It's self-discipline is the backbone of self-reliance because it is what keeps you on track when external forces try to pull you in different directions. Without discipline, even the best intentions will fall by the wayside. You may have grand dreams, deep desires, and powerful goals, but without the discipline to follow through, those things remain just ideas, just potential. Discipline is what turns potential into reality. Think about a person who wakes up early every day to work on their goals. They may not feel like getting out of bed, but they do it anyway because they are disciplined. They understand that success is not about doing what's easy, but about doing what's necessary. Discipline isn't a feeling, it's a commitment. It's about doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like doing it. The reason many people struggle with self-reliance is because they lack discipline. They rely on motivation, on inspiration, on the fleeting excitement of a new idea or a fresh goal. But motivation is temporary. It comes and goes like the wind. Discipline, however, is steadfast. It doesn't depend on how you feel at the moment. It doesn't waver when things get tough. Discipline remains steady even in the face of difficulty. Self-discipline also means mastering your emotions. So often, we allow our emotions to dictate our actions. We allow fear to hold us back, doubt to cloud our judgment, or anger to drive us to make rash decisions. But when you are disciplined, you are in control of your emotions. You acknowledge them, but you don't allow them to dictate your actions. For example, when you feel fear, discipline allows you to move forward anyway. When you feel doubt, discipline helps you stay the course. When you feel anger, discipline gives you the ability to pause, reflect, and respond thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. Self-discipline is about mastering yourself. And when you have mastery over yourself, you are no longer at the mercy of your emotions, your circumstances, or the opinions of others. You are in control of your destiny. The next step in self-reliance is learning to trust your instincts and intuition. Each of us has an inner voice, a gut feeling, an intuitive sense that often guides us in life. Yet, too many people ignore this voice, allowing external opinions to drown out their own inner wisdom. Learning to trust your own judgment is key to self-reliance. You know more than you think you do. Your life experiences, your observations, your failures, and your successes have equipped you with knowledge and wisdom. But so many of us look outside for validation. We second guess ourselves. We seek approval from others before making decisions, as if someone else knows better what's right for our life than we do. But I'm here to tell you that no one knows you better than you know yourself. No one has walked in your shoes. No one has experienced life from your perspective. Therefore, no one else can tell you what's right for you. You have to trust yourself. You have to learn to listen to that inner voice, that gut feeling that tells you when something is right or wrong. This doesn't mean you ignore advice from others. It's wise to seek counsel, to learn from the experiences and perspectives of others. But at the end of the day, the decision is yours to make. You must trust yourself enough to know that you are capable of making the right choices for your life. Trusting yourself also means being willing to make mistakes. Sometimes, people fear making decisions because they are afraid of being wrong. But self-reliance isn't about being perfect. It's about being willing to take risks, to make mistakes, and to learn from those mistakes. Every failure is an opportunity to grow. Every wrong turn is a chance to recalibrate and find a better path. You see, failure is not the opposite of success, it's a part of success. Every successful person has failed multiple times. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is not the absence of failure, but the willingness to learn from failure. When you depend on yourself, you understand that failure is not something to be feared. It is something to be embraced. It is a teacher, a guide, a stepping stone on the path to success. Another important aspect of self-reliance and self-awareness: you cannot depend on yourself if you don't know yourself. Self-awareness is about understanding your strengths, your weaknesses, your values, your motivations, and your triggers. It's about being honest with yourself about who you are and where you need to grow. That too often people live their lives unaware of their own patterns of behavior. They go through life reacting to situations without ever stopping to ask, why am I reacting this way? They make the same mistakes over and over again without taking the time to reflect on what they can learn from those mistakes. But self-awareness is the key to breaking those patterns. It's the key to growth, to transformation, and to become the person you were meant to be. When you are self-aware, you can see yourself objectively. You can recognize your blind spots and take steps to address them. You can acknowledge your strengths and build on them. You can understand your weaknesses and work to improve them. Self-awareness also means being honest with yourself about what you want in life. So many people live their lives trying to fulfill the expectations of others' parents, society, culture, without ever stopping to ask themselves, what do I really want? But when you are self-aware, you are in tune with your own desires, your own goals, your own purpose. You are no longer living someone else's life. You are living your own. Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to speak to you about a principle that is often misunderstood, misrepresented, and sometimes even disregarded. It is a principle that can determine the direction of your life, your relationships, and your destiny. The principle is this: don't be soft to everyone. Now, before you misunderstand my words, let me clarify what I mean by soft. I'm not talking about being kind, compassionate, or empathetic. Those are virtues that we should all aspire to embody. Being soft in this context refers to being overly accommodating, overly tolerant, and excessively lenient situations that demand firmness, resolve, and strength. The misconception of gentleness. In many cultures, there's a prevailing belief that being gentle and accommodating is always the right approach. We are taught from a young age to avoid conflict, to say yes when we mean no, and to bend over backward to make others comfortable, even at our own expense. While there is a time and place for gentleness, we must recognize that it is not a one-size-fits-all solution. The danger lies in confusing gentleness with weakness. When we are soft to everyone, we risk becoming doormats, allowing others to walk all over us. We risk losing our sense of self, our convictions, and our purpose. Gentleness, when misapplied, can lead to a life of compromise, where we sacrifice our values and our goals in the name of keeping the peace. The strength in boundaries. One of the most important lessons we can learn is the importance of setting boundaries. Boundaries are not walls that keep people out. They are guidelines that protect our integrity, our time, and our energy. When you are soft to everyone, you often fail to establish these boundaries, and as a result, you find yourself depleted, frustrated, unfulfilled. Think about the times when you have said yes to something you really didn't want to do. Maybe it was a social obligation, a work task, or a personal favor. You said yes because you didn't want to disappoint someone, or because you wanted to avoid conflict. But afterward, you felt drained, resentful, and perhaps even a little bit angry. This is what happens when we are too soft, when we allow others to dictate our actions and our lives. Setting boundaries is an act of strength. It is a declaration that you value yourself, your time, and your purpose. It is not about being rude or dismissive. It is about being clear and firm in what you will and will not accept in your life. And when you establish these boundaries, you not only protect yourself, but you also teach others how to treat you with respect and consideration. The power of a strong will. A strong will is a powerful thing. It is the driving force behind every great achievement, every bold decision, and every meaningful change. When you have a strong will, you are not easily swayed by the opinions or demands of others. You are able to stand firm in your convictions, even when it is difficult, even when it is unpopular. Being soft to everyone dilutes your will. It makes you vulnerable to manipulation, coercion, and exploitation. When you are too eager to please, too willing to compromise, you lose the strength of your will. You become a person who is easily led, easily influenced, and easily controlled. To develop a strong will, you must first know who you are and what you stand for. You must have a clear sense of your values, your goals, and your purpose. And you must be willing to stand up for these things, even when it means going against the grain, even when it means disappointing others. A strong will is not about being stubborn or inflexible. It is about having the courage to stay true to yourself, to make decisions that align with your values, and to pursue your goals with determination and focus. It is about refusing to be swayed by the whims and demands of others and instead charting your own course in life. The cost of being too soft. There is a high cost to being too soft. And it is a cost that many people are not aware of until it is too late. When you are too soft, you invite disrespect, manipulation, and exploitation into your life. You become a target for those who seek to take advantage of your kindness and your willingness to accommodate. In relationships, being too soft can lead to a lack of balance and mutual respect. If you are always the one giving, always the one compromising, and always the one bending to the will of others, you will eventually feel taken for granted and unappreciated. Your relationships will become one-sided, with you doing all the work and others reaping the benefits. In your career, being too soft can prevent you from advancing and achieving your full potential. If you are always saying yes to every request, taking on tasks that are not aligned with your goals and avoiding confrontation, you will find yourself stuck in a rut, unable to move forward. You will be seen as someone who is easy to manage, but not someone who is a leader or a visionary. In your personal life, being too soft can lead to a lack of fulfillment and a sense of purposelessness. When you are constantly putting others' needs and desires ahead of your own, you lose sight of your own dreams and aspirations. You become a passenger in your own life, going where others want you to go, doing what others want you to do, and living a life that is not truly your own. The importance of discernment. Discernment is the ability to judge well, to distinguish between what is right and what is wrong, what is beneficial and what is harmful. It is a crucial skill that we must develop if we are to navigate the complexities of life and relationships. When you are soft to everyone, you often lack discernment. You fail to see when someone is taking advantage of you, when a situation is not in your best interest, or when you are being manipulated. You become blinded by your desire to please, to avoid conflict, and to be liked. Discernment requires a level of attachment. It requires you to step back from your emotions and consider the situation objectively. It requires you to ask yourself, what is really going on here? What are the potential consequences of my actions? Is this in line with my values and my goals? To develop discernment, you must be willing to trust your instincts and to listen to that inner voice that tells you when something is not right. You must be willing to say no when necessary, to walk away from situations that do not serve you, and to stand up for yourself when you yourself feel mistreated. The balance between kindness and firmness. One of the most important skills we can develop is the ability to balance kindness with firmness. Kindness without firmness is weakness. Firmness without kindness is cruelty. We must learn to be both kind and firm in our interactions with others. Kindness is about treating others with respect, compassion, and empathy. It is about being considerate of others' feelings and needs. But kindness does not mean being a pushover or a doormat. It does not mean saying yes to everything or allowing others to take advantage of pride. Firmness is about standing your ground, asserting your boundaries, and protecting your integrity. It's about being clear and decisive in your actions and decisions. But firmness does not mean being harsh or unyielding. It does not mean disregarding others' feelings or needs. When we learn to balance kindness with firmness, we become strong and compassionate individuals. We are able to navigate relationships and situations with grace and confidence. We are able to be kind without being taken advantage of, and firm without being cruel. The courage to be unpopular. One of the reasons why people are often too soft is because they fear being unpopular. They fear rejection, disapproval, and conflict. They want to be liked, accepted, and included. And so they go along with whatever others want, even when it goes against their own values and desires. But the truth is, you cannot please everyone, and trying to do so will only lead to frustration and disappointment. There will always be people who disagree with you, who disapprove of your actions, and who criticize your decisions. And that is okay. It takes courage to be unpopular, to stand up for what you believe in, and to make decisions that are in your best interest, even when others don't like it. It takes courage to say no when everyone else is saying yes, to walk away from situations that are not good for you, and to be true to yourself even when it means standing alone. Being popular is not the same as being respected. Respect comes from living with integrity, from standing by your values, and from making decisions that are aligned with your purpose. Popularity is fleeting and superficial, but respect is lasting and deep. The freedom in saying no. There is a profound freedom that comes with the ability to say no. When you are too soft, you often find yourself saying yes to things you don't want to do, to people who don't have your best interests at heart, and to situations that are not aligned with your goals. This constant yes can leave you feeling trapped, overwhelmed, and resentful. But when you learn to say no, you reclaim your power and your freedom. You are no longer bound by the expectations and demands of others. You are able to prioritize your own needs, goals, and well-being. You are able to make decisions that are right for you without fear of judgment or rejection. The importance of self-respect. Self-respect is the cornerstone of a strong and fulfilling life. It is the foundation upon which all healthy relationships, decisions, and actions are built. When you respect yourself, you set the standard for how others should treat you. You are not afraid to assert your boundaries, to say no, and to stand up for what you believe in. Self-respect is not about arrogance or self-centeredness. It is about recognizing your own worth and value. It is about treating yourself with the same kindness, consideration, and care that you offer to others. When you respect yourself, you are less likely to be swayed by the opinions or demands of others. You are able to make decisions that are in your best interest without guilt or hesitation. When you lack self-respect, you are more likely to be soft to everyone. You may seek validation and approval from others rather than from within. You may compromise your values, your time, and your energy in an effort to please others. This lack of self-respect can lead to a cycle of low self-esteem, where you continue to accommodate others in the hope of gaining their approval, only to feel empty and unfulfilled. Self-respect is also crucial in developing self-discipline. When you respect yourself, you are more likely to hold yourself accountable to your goals and values. You are more likely to make choices that align with your long-term well-being, rather than succumbing to short-term temptation or pressures. The role of assertiveness. Assertiveness is the ability to express your thoughts, feelings, and needs clearly and confidently, without being aggressive or passive. It is a key skill in balancing kindness with firmness. When you are assertive, you communicate your boundaries and expectations effectively without disrespecting others. Being assertive is not about being confrontational or argumentative. It is about being honest and direct in your communication. It is about expressing your needs and desires in a way that is respectful of both yourself and others. When you are assertive, you are able to advocate for yourself and protect your boundaries while still maintaining positive and respectful relationships. Assertiveness requires practice and courage. For those who are used to being soft or accommodating, it can be challenging to start asserting themselves. You may fear rejection, conflict, or hurting others' feelings. However, the more you practice assertiveness, the more natural it will become. You will start to see the benefits of being clear and direct in your communication, both in your relationships and in your overall well-being. The dangers of people-pleasing. People-pleasing is a common trait among those who are soft to everyone. It is the desire to be liked, accepted, and approved by others, often at the expense of your own needs and desires. People-pleasers go out of their way to make others happy, even if it means compromising their own values, time, and energy. While people-pleasing may seem like a positive trait, it is actually rooted in fear and insecurity. People-pleasers fear rejection, conflict, and disapproval, and so they seek to avoid this by always saying yes by IELTS, accommodating others, and by putting others' needs before their own. The danger of people-pleasing is that it leads to a loss of self. When you are constantly trying to please others, you lose sight of who you are and what you want. You become disconnected from your own needs and desires, and you start to live your life according to others' expectations and demands. The art of saying yes selectively. Just as important as the ability to say no is the ability to say yes selectively. When you are too soft, you may find yourself saying yes to everything out of a desire to please others, to avoid conflict, or to be seen as agreeable. But saying yes to everything can lead to overwhelm, burnout, and a lack of focus. To live a fulfilling and purposeful life, you must learn to say yes only to the things that truly matter. This means being selective and intentional about where you invest your time, energy, and resources. It means aligning your yes with your values, your goals, and your purpose. The importance of self-care. Self-care is not a luxury, it is a necessity. When you are too soft to everyone, you often neglect your own needs and well-being in favor of others. You may put others' needs before your own, sacrifice your own time and energy, and ignore your own health and happiness. But self-care is essential to living a balanced and fulfilling life. It is about taking the time to nurture your body, mind, and spirit. It is about making sure that you are healthy, happy, and whole. It is about giving yourself the care and attention that you deserve. My friends, I want to talk to you today about something that is essential to your well-being, your purpose, and your future. Something that has the power to elevate you or to bind you in chains of stagnation. I want to talk to you about knowing when it is time to walk away. And not just walking away, but walking away with dignity, with purpose, and with clarity, especially when you are not appreciated. Now, I want you to understand, appreciation is not simply about receiving compliments, accolades, or applause. Appreciation in its true form is about recognizing and valuing the essence of who you are, your purpose, your contributions, and your presence. But what happens when you find yourself in a place where your value is consistently overlooked, when your presence is taken for granted, when your contributions are met with indifference? What happens when you give and yet receive nothing in return? That is when you must make a difficult but necessary decision, the decision to walk away. Let me tell you, walking away is not an act of defeat. Walking away is an act of wisdom. It is an act of understanding the season you are in and the direction you are meant to go. It is an act of protecting your own spirit and guarding the treasure that God has placed within you. One of the greatest revelations you can have in life is the revelation of your own worth. You see, until you know your worth, you will tolerate things you are not meant to tolerate. You will settle for relationships, environments, and situations that diminish you instead of building you. You will accept mediocrity when you were designed for excellence. You will allow others to place limitations on you when God has given you the capacity for limitless potential. When you don't know your worth, you will find yourself chasing after approval, validation, and affirmation from people who may never give it to you. You will bend yourself into shapes you were never meant to fit into, trying to please people who may never recognize your true value. You will compromise your principles, your standards, and your vision just to feel accepted. And let me tell you, that is not what God intended for your life. God has placed a unique calling, a unique purpose, a unique assignment inside of you. There is something you were created to do that no one else can do in the way that you can do it. But if you don't recognize your own worth, you will allow people to reduce you to something far less than what you were created to be. When you walk into a room, you must understand that you carry something valuable. You carry the essence of God's purpose for your life. You carry gifts, talents, insights, and wisdom that have been shaped by your experiences, your trials, and your relationship with God. You carry within you the seeds of greatness. But if you don't know your worth, you will allow others to dictate your value, and they will always undervalue you. Listen to me carefully. When someone does not appreciate your worth, it is not your job to convince them. It is not your job to beg for recognition. It is not your job to shrink yourself down in hopes that they will one day see the value in you. No, my friends. When someone does not appreciate your worth, it is your job to walk away. There are dangers associated with staying in environments where you are not valued. The first danger is that you begin to doubt your own value. When you surround yourself with people who do not appreciate you, who do not acknowledge your contributions, who do not see the beauty and power of your potential, you start to internalize their lack of appreciation. You start to question whether you are really as valuable as you thought. You start to wonder whether your gifts are worth sharing, whether your dreams are worth pursuing, whether your voice is worth raising. The second danger is that you become comfortable with being undervalued. You settle into a pattern of being overlooked, being ignored, being taken for granted. You start to think that this is normal. You start to believe that this is just the way life is. And once you become comfortable with being undervalued, you stop striving for more. You stop pushing yourself to reach your full potential. You stop dreaming big dreams. You stop taking risks. You stop stepping out in faith because you have been conditioned to believe that what you have to offer is not significant. But I want to tell you today Do not allow anyone to make you feel insignificant. Do not allow anyone to make you feel small. Do not allow anyone to convince you that you do not matter. You were created by God for a purpose, and that purpose is far too important to be diminished by someone's lack of appreciation. Walking away is not just about leaving a situation, it's about moving towards something greater. When you walk away from an environment where you are not appreciated, you are not simply retreating. You are advancing. You are stepping into a new season, a new chapter, a new opportunity to be in a place where your gifts are recognized, where your contributions are valued, where your presence is appreciated. But here's the key: you must walk away with purpose. You must walk away with clarity about who you are and what you carry. You must walk away with an understanding that your value is not determined by the opinions of others, but by the truth of who God says you are. When you walk away, do not walk away in bitterness. Do not walk away in anger. Do not walk away in frustration. Walk away in peace. Walk away in confidence. Walk away with your head held high, knowing that you are making room for something better. You see, sometimes we hold on to relationships, to jobs, to situations that no longer serve us because we are afraid of the unknown. We are afraid that if we let go, we won't find anything better. We are afraid that if we walk away, we will be left empty-handed. But let me tell you, when you walk away from what no longer serves you, you are making space for what God has in store for you. God cannot pour new blessings into a vessel that is already full. Sometimes you have to empty yourself of the things that are draining you, the things that are weighing you down, the things that are hindering your growth in order to receive the new thing that God wants to do in your life. Walking away is not about loss, it's about making room for gain. Walking away is not about giving up, it's about stepping up to a higher level. Let's talk about relationships for a moment. Relationships are one of the primary areas where appreciation or lack thereof becomes evident. When you are in a relationship, whether it is a friendship, a partnership, or even a family relationship, appreciation is the foundation that keeps it healthy and thriving. Appreciation is the acknowledgement of the other person's value, contributions, and presence in your life. But what happens when you are in a relationship where appreciation is absent? What happens when you give your time, your energy, your love, and your resources, but it is met with indifference or even entitlement? What happens when you sacrifice for someone, but they do not even take the time to say thank you? What happens when you pour into someone, but they never pour back into you? Let me tell you, that is a dangerous place to be. Because when you stay in a relationship where you are not appreciated, you start to feel depleted. You start to feel drained. You start to feel like you are giving from an empty cup. And when you give from an empty cup, you are not operating in the fullness of who you are. You are operating out of a deficit. And when you operate out of a deficit, you cannot fulfill your purpose to the best of your ability. God did not create you to be depleted. He did not create you to be drained. He did not create you to be in relationships that take more than they give. God created you to flourish, to thrive, to be in relationships that are mutually edifying, where both parties appreciate and value one another. Relationships are meant to be reciprocal. They are meant to be a space where both people give and receive, where both people honor and value each other's presence. When this balance is lost, when one person is consistently giving while the other is consistently receiving without acknowledgement, there is an imbalance, a disharmony. This is not the design that God intended for relationships. We see this principle of reciprocity reflected throughout Scripture. In Proverbs 27:17, it says, iron sharpens iron. So one person sharpens another. This is a picture of mutual edification. Both people are made better. Both people are sharpened. Both people are uplifted. But if one person is constantly dulling the other without ever sharpening them in return, it becomes an unhealthy dynamic. Now, I want to be clear, walking away from a relationship where you are not appreciated does not mean that you are walking away from your responsibilities or from love. In fact, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to walk away. Why? Because when you continue to give of yourself in an environment where you are not appreciated, you are not only diminishing your own value, but you are also enabling the other person to continue in their lack of appreciation. You are allowing them to remain in a place of immaturity where they take without giving, where they expect without acknowledging. By walking away, you are setting a boundary. You are saying, I will no longer allow myself to be undervalued. I will no longer allow myself to be taken for granted. You are teaching others how to treat you by the way you treat yourself. And sometimes people need to experience your absence in order to appreciate your presence. Let's move beyond personal relationships for a moment and talk about appreciation in the workplace. Many of you are in jobs or careers where you feel unappreciated. You work hard, you go above and beyond, you bring creativity, dedication, and excellence to everything you do, but it feels like no one notices. Your contributions are overlooked, your efforts are taken for granted, and you are not given the recognition you deserve. I want to remind you today that your worth is not determined by your position or by the recognition or lack thereof that you receive in your workplace. Your worth comes from God, and He is the one who sees everything you do, even when no one else does. Colossians 3:23-24 tells us, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. However, there comes a time when you must evaluate whether the environment you are in is conducive to your growth and to the fulfillment of your purpose. You were not created to merely exist in a place where your gifts are stifled, where your creativity is suppressed, and where your value is diminished. You were created to thrive in environments that challenge you, that recognize your talents, and that push you toward your destiny. If you find yourself in a workplace where you are consistently undervalued, where your contributions are met with indifference, and where there is no room for advancement or growth, it may be time to consider walking away. Now, I'm not telling you to quit your job tomorrow without a plan. Walking away requires wisdom. It requires discernment. It requires seeking God's direction. But if you are in a place where you are not appreciated, do not be afraid to explore new opportunities, to seek out environments where your gifts can flourish and where your contributions will be valued. Staying in environments where you are not appreciated comes with a cost. And that cost is often greater than you realize. When you stay in a place where you are not valued, you begin to internalize that lack of appreciation. You start to believe that maybe you don't deserve better, that maybe this is the best you can do, that maybe this is as good as it gets. But let me tell you, that is a lie. That is not the truth of who you are. You see, staying in environments where you are not appreciated not only affects your mental and emotional health, but it also affects your spiritual well-being. When you allow yourself to remain in a place where you are not valued, you are, in essence, telling God that you are willing to accept less than what He has for you. You are saying, God, I know you have called me for greatness, but I'm going to settle for mediocrity. You are saying, God, I know you have given me gifts and talents, but I'm going to hide them because no one here appreciates them. But God did not call you to hide your light, Matthew 5:16 says, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Your light cannot shine in an environment that does not recognize its brightness. Your gifts cannot flourish in a place where they are not appreciated. There is a cost to staying where you are not valued, and that cost is often your purpose. When you remain in a place where you are not appreciated, you are not operating in the fullness of your purpose. You are not using your gifts to their fullest potential. You are not stepping into the destiny that God has for you. And that, my friends, is too high a cost to pay. Now, let me bring this into a spiritual context. Even God, in his infinite love and patience, gives us examples of when it is time to walk away. In the scriptures, we see that God is long-suffering, slow to anger, and abounding in love. But there are also times when God steps back and allows people to experience the consequences of their actions when they do not appreciate his presence. One of the clearest examples of this is found in the Old Testament, in the story of the Israelites. Time and time again, God rescued them, provided for them, and showed them his love. Yet time and time again, they turned away from him, took his blessings for granted, and did not appreciate his presence in their lives. In Jeremiah 7:13, 15, God says to the Israelites, while you were doing all these things, declares the Lord, I spoke to you again and again, but you did not listen. I called you, but you did not answer. Therefore, what I did to Shiloh, I will now do to the house that bears my name. The temple you trust in, the place I gave to you and your ancestors. I will thrust you from my presence, just as I did all your fellow Israelites, the people of Ephraim. Even God, in his perfect wisdom and love, knows when it is time to withdraw his presence when he is not appreciated. And if God himself sets that example, how much more should we, as his children, follow his lead? Walking away is an act of setting boundaries. Boundaries are not about shutting people out. They are about protecting what is valuable. And what is more valuable than the purpose God has placed inside of you? What is more valuable than the gifts he has given you? What is more valuable than your relationship with him and your ability to fulfill his calling on your life? When you walk away from environments, relationships, or situations where you are not appreciated, you are setting a boundary. You are saying, I value myself enough to not allow anyone to diminish my worth. I value the gifts that God has given me, and I will not allow them to be squandered in a place where they are not appreciated. I value my purpose, and I will not settle for less than what God has for me. Boundaries are necessary for growth. Boundaries are necessary for health. Boundaries are necessary for fulfilling your God-given purpose. And sometimes the most important boundary you can set is the decision to walk away from what no longer serves you. I know that walking away is not easy. It can be one of the hardest decisions you will ever make. There is fear associated with walking away. Fear of the unknown. Fear of being alone. Fear of not finding anything better. Fear of making the wrong decision. But let me remind you of this fear. It's not from God. 2 Timothy 1:7 tells us, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Walking away requires faith. It requires trusting that God has something better for you on the other side. It requires believing that you are worth more than what you are currently receiving. It requires knowing that your value does not decrease because someone else fails to see it. Your value remains constant because it is rooted in who God created you to be, not in how others perceive you. Walking away is an act of faith. It is an act of trusting that God will lead you to a place where you are appreciated, where your gifts are valued, and where your purpose can be fulfilled. It is an act of trusting that God will provide for you. even when it seems like there are no other options. It is an act of trusting that God is in control and that He will guide you to where you need to be. Walking away is more than a mere physical act. It is a spiritual journey. It is an act of releasing control and surrendering to God's greater plan for your life. Many times, the fear of walking away stems from a desire to control the outcome. You see, as human beings, we like to know what's next. We like to have a clear map, a clear path, a clear destination. But walking away often requires stepping into the unknown, into a place where you have no guarantees, no assurances, no roadmap. And that, my friends, is where faith comes in. Hebrews 11:1 tells us that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. When you walk away from what is not serving you, from environments where you are not appreciated, you are stepping into a space of faith. You are believing that even though you cannot see the next step, God has already prepared the way. You are trusting that even though you do not know what lies ahead, God has already ordained it for your good. In Genesis 12:1, God called Abraham to leave his country, his people, and his father's household and go to a land that He would show him. Abraham didn't know where he was going. He didn't have all the details. But he walked away in faith, trusting that God's plan was greater than his present situation. And what happened? God made Abraham the father of many nations. God blessed him beyond what he could have imagined. Sometimes God is calling you to walk away not because He wants you to lose something, but because He wants to bless you with something greater. But you can receive the greater thing if you are still holding on to what is less. You can't step into the new season if you are still clinging to the old one. You can't embrace the new blessings if your hands are full of the things that are depleting you. One of the reasons people struggle to walk away is because they feel a sense of responsibility for the situation they are in. You might think, if I just try harder, maybe they will appreciate me, or if I just give a little more, maybe they will see my worth. Or if I just hold on a little longer, maybe things will change. But let me tell you something, you are not responsible for other people's inability to recognize your value. You are not responsible for fixing someone else's broken perception of you. You are not responsible for making someone else see your worth. You are only responsible for stewarding the gifts and the calling that God has placed inside of you. And sometimes that stewardship requires you to walk away from those who cannot or will not appreciate what you carry. Jesus Himself demonstrated this principle. In Mark 6:4, Jesus said, "A prophet is not without honor except in his own town, among his relatives and in his own home." Even Jesus, the Son of God, was not appreciated by everyone. And what did He do? He did not force Himself upon those who did not value Him. He did not beg for their approval or chase after their validation. He walked away and took His message to those who were ready to receive it. In the same way, there will be people who do not recognize the anointing, the gifts, the purpose that God has placed inside of you. There will be environments that are not conducive to your growth. There will be situations where your presence is taken for granted. And when you find yourself in those places, you must have the courage to walk away. One of the hardest parts about walking away is the fear of being alone. You may wonder, if I walk away from this relationship, will I ever find another one? Or if I leave this job, will I find something better? Or if I distance myself from this group of friends, will I be left with no one? Let me reassure you, my friends, you are never truly alone. Even in the moments when it feels like you are walking away by yourself, God is with you. Psalm 23:4 says, "Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me." God will never leave you nor forsake you. He will walk with you through every valley, every desert, every wilderness season. But beyond that, walking away often makes room for the right people to enter your life. Sometimes we hold on to relationships, jobs, or situations out of fear of loneliness, not realizing that God has better connections, better opportunities, and better environments waiting for us. But we cannot receive the new if we are still clinging to the old. Walking away creates space for God to bring new relationships into your life, relationships that are built on mutual appreciation, respect, and love. It creates space for new opportunities that align with your purpose and allow you to flourish. It creates space for new seasons of growth, development, and fulfillment. Timing is everything when it comes to walking away. You see, there are moments when you feel the stirring in your spirit that it is time to move on, but fear, doubt, or uncertainty cause you to delay. And sometimes that delay can cost you opportunities and blessings. Ecclesiastes 3:1 tells us that there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. There is a time to plant and there is a time to uproot. There is a time to stay and there is a time to leave. One of the keys to walking away with wisdom is discerning God's timing. When God begins to stir your spirit and reveal to you that a certain chapter of your life is coming to a close, it is important to listen. It is important to pay attention to the signs, the shifts, the changes that are happening around you. God is always speaking to us, but we must be tuned in to hear his voice. Sometimes God will allow certain situations to become uncomfortable as a way of signaling that it is time to move on. What once felt fulfilling now feels empty. What once brought you joy now brings you frustration. What once aligned with your purpose now feels like a burden. These are often signs that God is preparing you for a transition. When you feel this shift happening, do not ignore it. Do not try to force yourself to stay in a place where God is calling you to leave. Trust that God's timing is perfect. Trust that when he says it's time to walk away, it's because he has something better waiting for you. Prayer is essential when it comes to walking away. You must seek God's guidance in every step of the process. Before you make the decision to leave, before you take that step into the unknown, spend time in prayer. Ask God for clarity. Ask him for wisdom. Ask him for confirmation. James 1:5 tells us, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. God is not a God of confusion. He is a God of order. He will not leave you in a state of uncertainty. If you seek him with all your heart, he will guide you. Sometimes walking away is not an immediate decision. Sometimes God may ask you to stay in a situation for a season while he prepares you for the transition. This is why prayer is so important. Through prayer, you can discern whether God is calling you to walk away now or whether he is asking you to remain for a little while longer. Either way, it is crucial that you stay in alignment with his timing and his will. Prayer also strengthens you for the journey ahead. Walking away is not easy. It requires courage, resilience, and faith. But through prayer, you can receive the strength you need to take that step. Philippians 4:13 reminds us, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. When you lean on God in prayer, he will give you the strength to walk away with peace, confidence, and grace. Walking away is often a test of your faith. It is a test of whether you truly believe that God has something better for you. It is a test of whether you trust him enough to let go of what is familiar, what is comfortable, and what is known in exchange for the unknown. In Genesis 19, we read the story of Lot and his family as they were instructed by the angels to flee from Sodom and Gomorrah. They were told to leave everything behind and not to look back. But Lot's wife, in her hesitation and attachment to what she was leaving behind, looked back and she turned into a pillar of salt. This story is a powerful reminder that when God calls you to walk away, you must do so with your whole heart. You cannot look back with regret, longing, or attachment to the past. You must walk away in faith, believing that what lies ahead is greater than what you are leaving behind. Walking away is a test of whether you are willing to trust God's plan for your life, even when it doesn't make sense. It is a test of whether you are willing to believe that His thoughts are higher than your thoughts and His ways are higher than your ways, Isaiah 55:8-9. It is a test of whether you are willing to release control and allow God to lead you into a new season.